A lot of people feel lost in life, and we're going to look into the reasons why. I'm Cody, founder of Yourself Unlimited, where I help people expand beyond their normal societal ways of thinking to be happy whenever they want. One of the saddest things in today's world is that most people feel that they have no choice over how they live their lives. We feel that we get stuck in the same boring daily routines. We go to work, we get home, and half the time when you have time for fun, you're too tired because you've been working too hard. This lame life that we all live is simply a product of us growing up in a society that tells us that earning money is the best way to earn happiness. We're taught that if you make enough money, you can finally go on that vacation that you've always wanted to hit, to be able to reach that peak happiness that you've been looking for. But the truth is that everybody in our society is under this mass hypnosis, you could call it, of thinking that happiness has to be coming from the outside, that you have to buy an experience to be happy, or you have to buy a thing to be happy. In my opinion, this is the root of all depression in our society, that we live life holding up to these standards and values that we learn from this toxic society that we grew up within. In the same way that if you were to plant a tree in toxic and harsh soil, it would never grow up to be the same size that it could be if it was in a nutrient-rich soil. In the same way, we are an exact product of our society, of our societal upbringing and conditioning. And you can only be as happy, you can only think in the patterns of thinking that we all learn to think through from society. And just like that tree, every person in a society is a direct product of the conditioning or upbringing of that society. So you yourself have been conditioned and brought up in certain ways that you will not be able to escape unless you actually make an effort to. Now, the main difference between you and that tree is a tree, once it's planted, cannot move. A man or a woman can bring themselves to a different psychological state, therefore undoing some of that harsh negative mentality that's been programmed into us. And escaping from that harsh negative mentality that we've all been brought up in within this society allows you to have an entirely different experience of life. In the same way that if that tree was to be replanted in beautiful soil in a rich forest, the nutrients would bring it new life. It's literally that much of a difference that we can all experience by bringing yourself out of the mentality that society has brought us all up to think within. Instead, you can learn to feel the deep, rich, vibrant happiness that's within every single person when you don't rely on the outside to provide you a reason to be happy. In the same way that when you look at children when they're young, they have this natural happiness that they live life through, that they exude. This is still within every one of us, but it's just been covered up from all these negative, limiting ways of thinking that we all pick up from our toxic society. So if you don't feel like you have enough control over your life or control over your ability to be happy, know that at any point you can start outgrowing, you can start developing beyond that mindset that society has grown you up to be. Now, how do you start down this path of escaping all of these negative ways of thinking that we've all learned? For me, it started when I was about 14, and I started really sort of thinking outside the normal parameters of society. I started getting into quote-unquote conspiracy theories, into things that aren't necessarily talked about mainstream-wise in our society. A lot of the same things that most of the people that are quote-unquote woke in our society sort of go down that same path. That's the path that I started on. This is back before the concept of woke was really even a thing. It was when YouTube was sort of just getting any of this information out there. Now, I'm not saying you should look into or even be interested in conspiracy theories or anything outside the scope of general reality. The thing that I need you to get out of this is that no matter what new information you're going to come upon, it's going to bring you to a whole new mental state, a whole new mentality, which is just a different type of lens that you will see and experience life through. So a lot of people eventually get into things that are much more out there, such as metaphysics, spirituality, Eastern mysticism, different things like this. Buddhism even is somewhat out there, outside the general realm of typical psychology in our society. So again, realize that all of these things are just different lenses that you experience life through, and whichever one you sort of end up attracting yourself to, just know that that's the path you're supposed to take. That's the information that was going to work for you. What certain people will get, or certain type of information will work for certain people, that information won't work for a whole different type of person. So understand that whatever info you grab yourself to or you gravitate towards, know that that's just the way you were supposed to go. That's just what you were supposed to learn about to bring you to that next version of yourself. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is to just take this step. Decide within yourself that you want to be a different version of yourself, that you've had enough of living this ordinary, annoying life that we all are taught to live through society, the extremely limited ways of thinking.